Assalamu alaikum everyone and welcome to the show. This is the Who Cares show with Salma and Seema.
Assalamu alaikum.
How was your week, Seema?
Alhamdulillah, I shouldn't complain. How about you, Salma?
Alhamdulillah, it was a really good week.
Oh, mashallah.
Yes,
very
we
good.
had a very good week this week and I'll tell you about it
Oh,
right in a
I think
minute.
I've seen you in the papers this week.
Well, it's two reasons why we've got good news this week, but I shall tell you all about them in a minute.
Why have you been in the papers? What have you been up to, huh, Salma?
Well, can't tell you that
Trouble,
just yet.
as usual.
I know. Anyway, welcome to the show. Every week on the Who Cares show, we will be discussing poverty-related issues that are affecting people on our doorstep, people right here in Leicester. We'll be covering issues such as homelessness, food poverty and social isolation. Each week we do have a guest who comes on the show and they talk about whatever issue we are discussing that day. If you want to join in the discussion, you can text us on 07450 925 084 or you can phone us in the studio, which is 212 9324. Now on today's show we're actually talking about homelessness and who does it affect, how many people and how can you as the community help. A little later in the show we're going to be joined by John, who was previously homeless, and Helen Hayes, who's chair of One Roof Leicester. So Seema, you asked me why we were in the paper this week, I know, but there was two reasons why we've had good news today. If you remember last week we talked about food poverty and the food collection.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there was a big food collection on Saturday.
We had the big food collection drive on Saturday at Madani Schools Federation.
Yes.
And I just want to say Jazakallah to all the groups that worked on that project with us and everyone who contributed. Because guess how much we raised?
Did you get a couple of tins, did you?
We got more than a couple of tins.
Did you?
Seema.
Go on.
Yeah, we were slightly overrun by the amount of food. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Through your donations, we collected 4 tons of food.
Wow. 4 tons.
4 tons.
Mashallah. That beats
Last
previous
year's,
records, doesn't it?
We did 3 tons last year.
Yeah.
And 4 tons means that's the equivalent of 4,000 food parcels going out into the community.
That is amazing. I thought you were going to say 4 tons, that's the equivalent of 10 of you or something. But yeah.
No, I don't go that far, Seema.
Okay, yeah.
maybe 20 of you, but not 10.
Okay.
But alhamdulillah.
That's
and this
fantastic.
week we've been going out giving our thank you certificates to the schools that took part, because we had 10 schools that donated as well. So alhamdulillah.
And this is an annual event, so we can expect this every year, right?
Yeah, inshallah. Yeah, Allah, keep us in, good strength and health and well-being. And
so people can actually think about next year, plan for it now. So you can approach your schools for next year and make it even more than 4 tons.
Yeah. I mean, you never know, might do something in the middle of the year as well, around harvest time. Somebody's mentioned that.
Okay.
So we'll see. But yeah, definitely,
Inshallah,
next Ramadan, look out again. And let's try and get even more tins and food coming in.
That's great.
So yeah. So let's
you're in the paper. No, you're in the paper. Are you going to tell us?
Yes. Oh yes, I forgot about the paper. We'll tell you about the paper.
Don't try and dodge the question.
The paper comes later.
Okay.
The paper article relates to my guest that's here.
Okay.
Helen. So Helen will tell you all about why we were in the paper together. It is for a good reason. Trust me, people.
You're not in trouble.
We're not in trouble.
Okay.
So as we always start, Seema, let's start with asking you a question first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you think about homelessness, what do you think about?
You always put these questions to me and okay. Shall I tell you what I think most people probably think?
Yes, go on.
Most people probably think, when they think of a homeless person, they will probably think of someone sitting in the street, near a shop, probably with a dog, dirty, grubby, smelly, probably not aggressive, but maybe some people feel afraid. And usually sort of with asking for money or something. That's your typical sort of image that people would have of a homeless person, I suppose.
Yeah. And obviously there are a few people who are street homeless that would fit that description, but very few actually are like that. In England, over 65,000 people are living in temporary accommodation, and that's people who are actually living in hostels, bed and breakfasts. They might be sofa surfing, so that's where they're going from one person's sofa or floor to another, so they don't have a permanent abode. On top of that, we also have 2,000 people who are sleeping rough on the street in the UK. The highest number of rough sleepers are actually in London, and on a given night you could expect to find about 700 people who are sleeping rough. A few years ago here in Leicester, we actually had the highest number of rough sleepers outside of London, but we now have one of the lowest numbers, thankfully, alhamdulillah, to the partnership working amongst different organisations who've been working really hard for the last 3-4 years to actually bring that number down and keep it down. And for a city of the size of Leicester, we've had 15 and 10 people sleeping on the street, and we actually did achieve over the Christmas period no non-rough sleepers on our street. So alhamdulillah, in Leicester we are doing a really good job.
Sounds good, yeah.
But what is it like to be homeless? What sort of help is available? How do you get around your situation if you do find yourself homeless? So to start off with, in the studio, we've got our guests who've arrived. Thankfully, we've got John, who was previously homeless, and also joining us a little bit later is Helen Hayes. Hello, John.
Hiya, you all right?
I'm fine. How are you?
All right, thank you.
Good, good. You might need to bring the microphone a little bit closer. Let's get you a bit louder. That's great. Thank you. That's fine. So, John, if we come to you first, you were once homeless, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Were you street homeless? Were you sleeping on the streets, or?
Yeah, I was sleeping on the streets. I I couldn't get a bed anywhere for the night, so I just had to make do with the street, really, it was uncomfortable, but I had to do it,
Yeah. John, do you mind telling us why you became homeless?
Yeah, I became homeless because I spent my rent on alcohol, really. I didn't have any rent to pay in to get anywhere, So I suppose in a way I sort of made myself homeless at the start, and then I was homeless for different reasons, family traumas and arguments, and So I just sort of just lived the way of a person sleeping rough on the street,
Yeah. How long were you out on the streets, John?
1 year, one time I was on the street for almost a year, because I was finding it difficult to get into places, and places that I thought were nice to live in, they seemed a bit uncomfortable to me, and I felt, at that time, I felt safer on the street.
Oh my gosh, you felt, wow. So for you, when did your sort of first, if you want to call it about, when did you first become homeless? How long ago was that?
I first became homeless when my own father took me out. It's about 1977.
Wow, that's
and that was on Christmas Eve.
Oh goodness!
So I thought, not a good time to get chucked out.
Yeah, yeah. So how old were you then, John?
I was about 21. Then,
I assume it would have been cold then as well.
Oh, it was really cold at that time. Yeah, it was 0 temperatures.
Gosh.
Yeah, it was sleeting and snow at the time. Yeah. So it was a bit. But I had another brother that came out with me as well. He got chucked out at the same time. So we sort of managed to get into an hotel for a couple of nights after the night out. We managed to get into an hotel because he made believe his social services. Right. So he sort of like tricked them really to for us to get a bed for a couple of nights.
Right. So when you've been homeless, have you found it difficult? What's life like on the streets?
I wouldn't say it's really good. You're always aware of what's happening around you. Really, you can't sleep on the streets. People say there's a phrase called sleeping rough, but you're not really sleeping rough on the streets. You're sort of awake all night because you can't really sleep anywhere because you're thinking about your own safety. Really, you're trying to protect yourself on the street. So you can't really sleep. The term is sleeping rough, but you don't sleep rough. Yeah. I mean, you don't sleep on the street. You're sort of you're on the street, but you're sort of awake most of the night.
Did you have somewhere which was like your regular spot, John, or were you moving around?
No, I used to sort of move around. I used to go out of town.
Right.
I didn't used to sleep in shop doorways like some people do. I just used to go sort of out of town and probably sleep in an allotment somewhere or something like that, you know, or someone's garden shed.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, sleeping in an allotment under the stars, it might sound romantic, but actually it sounds quite frightening to me. Were you ever afraid?
I was really, yeah, you know, because there's all sorts of sort of wild sort of animals around at night, you know, like foxes and you get the rats about and things like that, you know, so.
Spiders and goodness knows, yeah.
Especially foxes, because they go, you know, rooting around for food at night, so they can be wild, some of these foxes.
Yeah.
For you, like John, for you, what was the worst thing that happened to you while you were sleeping rough, or out on the street, shall we say?
Well, I wouldn't say worst thing really. I mean, I've damaged my leg through sleeping rough, you know, because it's been that cold sometimes. It was that cold sometimes, you know. I had to sort of the cold got through to my leg, you know. So I sort of it sort of you know, made my leg sort of bad. You know, that's why my leg's bad now today, you know.
Yeah.
Because it all stems from being out sleeping rough, you know.
Yeah. So when you were rough sleeper, when you were out on the streets, did you know where to go for help? Were you able to find help quite easily?
Well, I used to ask the local drinkers in a town. You know, if I was in a town or a city, I'd probably ask the local drinkers, you know, where the nearest shelter is or something like that. Because I thought to myself, well, they'll know if anybody, more than anybody, you know, because they drink together and probably some of them live there, you know. So I probably thought, well, they're the best people to ask. A group of people that's having a drink, you know. So.
And have you been in and out of hostels as well then?
Yeah, I've been in hostels most of my life, really, in and out, you know. As well as sleeping rough, I've been in most hostels around the country.
Oh, right.
You know, I've been in Salvation Armies, which are very good for the homeless, you know.
Yeah.
I've been in plenty of Salvation Army hostels and halfway houses and things like that, you know, and rehab centres. You know, so I've been sort of like, you could say, sort of like hostelised, really, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I've been sort of, and I've been in them that much, really, hostels. You know, I could write a book about them.
Maybe you should. It'd be nice to hear your story. So really, for you, you've been trying to work it out. It's nearly 35, 37 years since you first became homeless.
Well, it is really, yeah. You know, I actually didn't think I'd be sort of becoming homeless lately, because I came back to Leicester from Bradford in Yorkshire.
Right.
So I used to live up in West Yorkshire. I didn't expect myself to be homeless when I came back to Leicester, but I ended up being homeless somehow. And
how long ago was that?
that was, I think it was about end of August last year.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, that's really recent then. It's not long ago.
So it wasn't that long ago, really, you know, and it's only because of my friend Ellen here who discovered that I'd been sleeping rough.
Yeah. So tell us about what happened. So you came back to Leicester, you ended up back on the streets.
Yeah.
So where did you go for help, or how did you end up meeting Helen?
Well, when I was sleeping rough, I slept off Abbey Laneway. There, you know, there's an old tyre garage open, so I slept in there.
Right.
And then the next morning, I sort of, because I was actually stopping at somebody's house, but I got asked to leave.
Right.
You know, just because of a family circumstance, really, actually. And I sort of, I slept in this garage overnight, and then I think I was in town, and Alan phoned me up and agreed to meet me near the clock tower.
Yeah.
So, and then Ellen found me a place. You know, she got me into a B&B. You know, that night, and then took me up to a really great place called Wordsworth Road.
Yeah.
Knighton, and it all started from there, really, to get my life back together again.
Yeah.
Really, so.
So you had your one night in the B&B, and then Helen took you to Wordsworth Road.
Yeah, which is in Knighton.
Which is a temporary shelter accommodation for men.
Yeah, accommodation for the homeless people.
Yeah. How long were you at Wordsworth Road?
I was there for about 3 months. So, which is not too bad really. So,
Yeah.
because they actually got me a flat where I am now. So,
Was it Wordsworth Road that helped you to get a flat?
yeah, that's
How long?
it. Yeah,
How long have you been in your flat, John?
I've been there 7 months now. So, I'm actually getting my life back together.
Yeah.
You know, thanks to the people that's helped me.
Yeah.
Really, you know. So,
So in terms of like, what about, you know, because like earlier you said that you had lots of sort of addictions and different problems as well.
yeah, because
Have you had help with all of that?
I have really. Yeah, I'm getting help with that. And I had alcohol problems, you know, because I was a big alcoholic years ago, you know.
Right.
And I'm surprised I'm still here today, the things I've drunk.
Right, yeah.
But, yeah, I'm getting help with that now, you know. I have a one-to-one with a counsellor, like, you know,
Yeah.
alcohol worker, you know,
Mhm.
so I seem to be doing all right on that, really.
Oh, that's good. I mean,
Yeah,
you
I'm
look
not
really
sort
well. I
of-
mean, you're looking really well, John. It's fabulous to see. But,
Thank
you know,
you.
besides sort of like, obviously, when you become street homeless, obviously, we've talked about the fact that you don't have a bed, but there are other things that you need as well. What about food? How do you tackle getting food? How do you find food?
Well, I used to go to, at the time, years ago, I didn't used to go to getting the food. I used to go to a church and ask for a couple of quid here and there.
Right.
You know, a couple of pound here and there,
Yeah.
you know. And the vicar used to give it me, like, you know, so I used to buy food out of that, really.
Right.
You know, bits of food out of that, you know.
Yeah.
That was before they had these food banks. Now, but they got these food banks nowadays. They didn't used to have them years ago when I was sleeping rough.
Yeah.
So, but there was sort of there was churches around where you know that the vicar or the priest will give you some money, you know.
Yeah.
Like take you on trust, really. You know that you don't spend it on drink or anything, you know. So I used to go there here and there, you know, and just ask for a little bit off them, like, you know.
I think the other thing that a lot of people forget about when we talk about homelessness is that it's not just a home that you're losing, but it's also your family and the contact that you might have with your family. So did it affect your sort of relationships with your family members? Because obviously you said initially it was because your dad checked you out.
Yeah.
And then your brother was out on the streets as well. Are they still around? Do you have contact with family members?
Yeah, I've still got family members, yeah, you know. The brother that I was sleeping rough with, he's not here now, he's passed away, like, you know.
Oh,
But
right, okay.
I've still got other family members. I've got one in Leicester that lives in Leicester, you know,
Right.
brother lives in Leicester,
Yeah.
you know, so we keep in constant contact, you know. So.
Yeah.
But I'd like to say something about, you know, your conversation about people sleeping in doorways. I have passed a lot of people that sleep in doorways, and I know some people are sleeping rough that sleep in doorways, but I think there might be some people that are not sleeping rough, but they might just be doing it for their own sort of means to get a bit of money, you know.
Yeah, so you think they just... yeah, basically...
I'm not trying to put them down, by the way,
yeah.
I'm just saying that some people,
but
you know...
we do know, I mean, one of the things that, you know, we do warn people about an awful lot in the work we do is that just because you see somebody begging on the streets doesn't mean that they're actually in need or that they're homeless.
Oh,
They are
that's it,
doing,
yeah.
but they know that people, people will give out of the kindness of their heart. And there was an article recently in the Mercury that said some of these people are making £200 to £300 a day just from begging on the streets.
Oh, yeah, they can...
And because of the nature of the work that we do, and Helen does, we do know who the people in need are. And most often, those are not the ones that are actually begging on the streets. And it's unfortunate.
John, did you ever ask strangers or people on the street? Because you said that you used to go to a church and sometimes you get a bit of money from there. But did you ever ask anyone just, you know, on the street and sit down and ask for money?
Not really. I've never stopped in doorways. I did. So I did beg once when I was in Southampton just to try it, see what it was like.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really good at begging. So. But I stopped outside this supermarket and I got I made £15 in that night. I was only there a couple of hours and I made £15.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I surprised myself. I thought I shouldn't really be doing this, begging people's money.
So that
You know.
it's quite interesting. So it actually felt wrong, even though
Well, I felt
really you
guilt.
were in need. You were in need of.
I was in need of it, but I felt guilty at the same time. I thought I'm taking somebody's money unintentionally, really, because you you know, they might need that for something else.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But I felt guilty taking it, but they gave it me anyway, you know. But I
Yeah.
thought, well, you know, they must have enough to give me something.
Yeah, and the thing is that, you know, you did need it, and so you
Yeah.
shouldn't feel guilty. It was a time when you were really in need.
Well, it was really. I suppose it was a desperate kind of time, really.
Yeah.
You know, desperate kind of measures, sort of thing. You know, so I sort of. But that's the first time. That's the first time I ever tried the begging thing, really, because I'm a bit shy at begging.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not shy to go on a stage in front of about 300 people, but I'm a bit shy to beg.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
That's okay.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us and telling us about what it was like for you to be homeless. Obviously, we do wish you the best, and
Thank you.
hopefully, you know, the flat that you're in, it's there now permanently, and you get the help and support that you need. You're listening to Who Cares on Radio Ramadan 95.1 FM. We'll be back after this nasheed break.
Somewhere in a place close by, there's a mother with a child with tears in her eyes. Somewhere else there's a boy on the street with no food there to eat, and he's trying to survive. Another place there's a father of 5, but he can't get food cause the bomb's in the sky. Somewhere else there's a senior now who is all out of food and her car won't drive. But we take this food we're blessed with and we throw it half away. We see there's so much wasted that can help so much today. Cause I know we take for granted a warm meal and a cup to drink. Oh, this silver plate we're handed. Maybe once we should stop and think that we don't know where the hungry ones have to go. We don't see what the hungry ones have to eat. We don't feel what the hungry ones feel at night. We don't hear when they pray everything's gonna be alright. Be alright, be alright. I'm gonna try to help things be alright. So that mother, she'll beg on the street to get something to eat so her baby won't cry. And the kid, he will search through the garbage of food we discarded just to get by. And the father springs through explosions just to get a loaf, and he's praying he won't die. And the senior walks to the shop, for over 10 blocks in the middle of the night. So few have a luxury to have food any kind of way. So many would love to be able to have a meal a day, but we act so wastefully. God knows how our day will end, how honored their place will be. He hears when they pray to Him, pray to Him, pray to Him. Oh, He hears when they pray to Him. We don't know where the hungry ones have to go. We don't see what the hungry ones have to eat. We don't feel what the hungry ones feel at night. We don't hear when they pray everything's gonna be alright. Be alright, be alright. I'm gonna try to help things be alright.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Who Cares on Radio Ramadan 95.1 FM. You're in the company of Seema and Salma this afternoon. Today we're talking about homelessness, and before the nasheed break you were listening to John's story. John was previously homeless and he's very kindly shared with us what it was like to live on the streets and how difficult that was. Seema, have we got any text messages?
Yeah, we've got someone who's saying that John mentioned that he would spend whatever money that he had on alcohol, and so isn't his situation self-inflicted, so why should people help? Yeah, so just wanted... John, do you have anything to say?
Well, I wouldn't really say it was self-inflicted. I'd just say I spent on alcohol in desperation of being on the street. I wouldn't really say it was self-inflicted to myself. It was sort of like kind of a thing just to forget I was on the street, really. You know, a bit of comfort for the street, to have a drink, to have a bottle of alcohol, you know. So yeah, I would have spent my money, the bit of money I got on alcohol, but just for medicinal purposes, really, you could say. You know, because I was homeless, so I was uncomfortable about being on the street. So a drink was a bit of comfort, really. You know.
I think you find that that's often the case, that people don't start off with an addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs or even mental health illness. And as the longer they're on the street, the worse the problem gets. And they start drinking or whatever, just to sort of, like John said, to forget that they're in that situation. It's almost like, you know, the quality of drowning your sorrows sort of expression. And that's why, you know, we do have anybody who's genuinely is homeless, we do have to treat with a lot of sympathy and care, because we don't know what their underlying issues are.
It's almost like it becomes a side effect of being homeless. So being homeless leads to other issues. Yeah, it really so it does. May not be, they don't start, what you're saying is that they don't start off, you know, perhaps taking drugs or taking alcohol, but so the homelessness can lead to many other problems and issues. So they are people that do need our attention and help wherever we can.
And it really leads nicely on to our next guest who's joining us this afternoon. We have Reverend Helen Hayes here with us. Helen is the pioneer priest amongst the homeless and works with the West Leicester Mission Partnership. Good afternoon, Helen.
Good afternoon, Salma.
And not to forget, she's also chair of One Roof Leicester. Wonder what that is. Thank you for joining us, Helen, taking time out from your very busy schedule. You were the one, John, when John talked about his situation a few minutes ago, it was you that he mentioned. He said a few times that it was Helen that helped me. How did it make you feel? You know, when you first met John, what was that like?
Well, I first met John through the Martyrs, because that's one of the churches that you go to, John, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
And he was attending church there, and John came to my licensing when I was licensed to do the work that I'm doing, and I got to know John, seeing him on a Sunday and perhaps seeing him around, because you used to go to the bridge on a Thursday night, didn't you, which is the Salvation Army, isn't it, on Kildare Street?
That's right, yeah.
So I got to know John very well. I knew where John was living. I knew the person that John was living with when John's life was a bit more settled. And then I was aware that things were beginning to go wrong in John's life to do with his brother. And I found out via the person who John was living with, who was giving him a home, that things had deteriorated in John's life, and was very concerned about his well-being and where he was at. I had John's phone number in my phone to keep an eye on him over the previous few months, and I'd been actually, on the day that I found out that John was sleeping rough on the streets again, I'd been rehearsing with a choir and just felt I ought to ring him to check how he is. Rang him and found out that he was living on the streets. And you were in a bad way, John, weren't you?
Yeah.
Obviously, as anybody would be. And I arranged to meet him. As I say, we met at the Clock Tower, and you were in a very distressed state, weren't you?
Yeah, I was,
and if I remember rightly, you'd broken your glasses, hadn't you? Do you remember?
I had, yeah,
and we got you to the opticians.
I think I fell on them, I think.
You did, you'd fallen on them. And so we went for a cup of coffee to try and help you feel a bit better about yourself. We got you to the opticians, and I rang the bridge up, because the bridge provided accommodation for the odd night before people could be sorted. Got you into a B&B and got you a good night's sleep, because you were a bit desperate for that. As you say, you don't sleep on the streets, so sleep deprivation is quite bad when you are homeless. And then through One Roof, I knew that Wordsworth Road existed, and I gave Dave a ring, and he said, actually, we've got a space vacant, bring him along tomorrow morning. So we got you all cleaned up, didn't we, and in some smart clothes, got you down to Wordsworth Road, and the rest is history, really. Wordsworth Road really cared for you, didn't they?
Yeah,
Dave was amazing down there.
Really great down there.
And you began to build your life back up again, didn't you, with the support of all sorts of people. And we got your health was in a bad way. We got you down to Inclusion Health, which is obviously one of the places that provide healthcare for people who are homeless. And now you're in your own place, which I have seen, and it's a really nice little home, which John really looks after
Yeah.
And you've been stable now for 7 months, haven't you,
Been there
John?
7 months, yeah.
That's fantastic. So for you, obviously this must be a journey, but what made you decide to become licensed as the pioneer priest amongst homeless people?
I think in my own personal faith journey, it's been something that I've had in my heart for a long time. If I'm honest, it's something that I've buried away because I thought I'm not sure I can do that. It's just the same as we spoke about earlier. We all have preconceived ideas about what homeless people are like, and I just thought I can't do that. And eventually I started listening to what God was calling me to, and got down on my knees one day and said, yes, I'll do this. Started to push the doors, and it is the most remarkable work. I think you'll agree with me, Salma. It is unbelievably rewarding in the people that you meet. Yeah, it's been a long journey, but it's a privilege to meet people like John and be able to support them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you are chair of One Roof Leicester.
I am, yes.
Wonderful organisation, I hear. So what is One Roof Leicester? So our listeners out there probably never heard of ORL or what you do or why you do it. So tell us, what is One Roof Leicester?
Well, One Roof Leicester started out as an organisation that wanted to connect up the service provision that is provided for those people who are homeless, because this city is rich in care for people who are homeless in terms of food, furniture for when people finally get a home, advice, support, health. And one of the things that the people who eventually made up One Roof Leicester was a realisation that one of the problems was that people who were in that care provision didn't know what each other was doing. And that was a problem because it meant that people might be offering the same services on the same day, or equally couldn't refer any of their service users, people like John, where to go to find clothes, where to go to find hot food, where to go to find a bed for the night. And so the original aim of One Roof was to provide like an umbrella service that connects everybody together, and also give a forum for people to feed back into, to support each other and connect together to improve the services that are here in Leicester. So that was its starting point. How many years ago was that, Salma, now? It's not long ago, is it?
It's about
18 months, is it?
No.
Is it more
Initially,
than that?
The umbrella organisation was 3 years ago, but then One Roof is about 2 years old.
Yeah. So
I'm supposed to be asking you the questions,
you are,
Helen,
but
not the other way around.
that's because I've come up. Our listeners need to know that I wasn't there at the beginning. I was licensed as a pioneer priest after One Roof was launched as an organisation. So I came part way through.
You did.
It actually sounds quite surprising that no one thought of it earlier, doesn't it? You know, to join up all the dots and have, you know, the information shared and know what each other... It just sounds really... And when you described it, it sounds obvious that there needs to be something like, you know, One Roof Leicester.
Yeah, I think one of the issues... Because I just to get a good radio plug for one of my other organisations, I run a place called Sound Cafe, which is at St Martin's House on a Wednesday afternoon. And Salma, you probably agree with me, when you're running a project, it's so easy just to be consumed with all that you are doing and not to think about anything else, because you've got it's quite a big job running any organisation. So if you're not careful, all you ever think about is what you're doing and not what anybody else is doing. So although it's a surprise, I can see why nobody else thought of it.
So yeah, you had your umbrella organisation, all the networking and trying to bring all these organisations together. But what happened after that? Where did it go from just becoming a networking organisation?
Well, I think one of the things that became clear as we started to connect together and have conversations with each other was, of course, the very basic issue of housing. It's, you know, is it okay just to run projects that feed people or clothe people or provide healthcare? That's all great and that's all needed. But hang on a minute, isn't actually the issue lack of housing, housing stock? You know, the fact that people like John very often they can't find a place for the night, because John, I'm sure you'll agree with me, there's times where people like you go along to the Dawn Centre or somewhere else, and there isn't room, is there?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
And so what do you do with those people when there simply isn't the room? And so One Roof sat down and said, well, hang on, there must be something else that could be done here that can address this lack of housing stock. And so we sat down, and I'm trying to think how long ago this was, because it feels like ages ago, but it wasn't. 1 year ago, and said, can we think of a different way of doing this? And we started to think about what might have been happening in other cities that we could get going in Leicester. And we found out about two organisations, one called Hope Into Action, which is in Peterborough, and the other that's the Boaz Trust, which is in Manchester. And they're running sort of a more alternative, creative housing project over there that takes a very basic premise, saying that what if you find people, faith groups, organisations, individuals or groups of people that have money, capital, and are looking for an ethical investment. And we all know ethical is the big word now at the moment. What if you bought a house that was within a faith community, and One Roof prides itself that we work with all faiths. It's not just a Christian organisation or a Muslim organisation. It's all faiths working together. What if you put that house in a faith community and you put care in around that house? So 2 people in a house, that's the model that Peterborough use, 2 people in a house, and then you befriend those people and support them with care and mentoring. And the 2 models in Manchester and Peterborough show that when you do this, when you put support and care in, people can start to rebuild their lives. And one of the problems that John's had, and you'll agree with me here, John, is that if you're just put into a house, having lived in a hostel, you said yourself you became a bit institutionalised through living in hostels all your life.
That's it, yeah.
Then the problem with that is when you're then put in a flat on your own, you don't know how to look after yourself, isn't that right?
That's it, yeah. You get a bit lonesome, really.
Yeah. And then if your issues that you've got that have happened with substance abuse, whether it's alcohol or drugs, it's very hard to address those if you don't have support. Yeah. And so this model says, let's put in the support.
Right. So what you're saying is, as part of One Roof Homes, is you have your investor.
Yeah.
So the investor purchases a property within sort of a neighbourhood, faith community or a community group. Now that investment, my understanding, is always the investor's property, isn't it? They're not.
Yeah, it's always theirs.
Yeah, it's always theirs. They're not just giving it away to One Roof.
Nope.
So they're leasing it for.
That's right. Yeah, 5 years.
5 years. So they lease it to One Roof for 5 years. You, as One Roof Leicester, find the right homeless people, so people who are ready for semi-independent living, to move into those homes.
Yeah.
So how long do you envisage them staying in that house for?
The model that we're trying to use is 2 years.
2 years.
And it's a key thing about the people that that are put in those houses. The people that are chosen are people who are addressing the issues in their lives.
Yeah.
That they want to sort out the problems that they've had. And all they need is a step up. They're ready to start looking for work. They're ready to re-engage with their community and society. They just need a home and someone to support them while they're doing it.
And then the third part of it is this faith community or community group.
Yeah.
And what will they be doing?
Well, what they'll be doing is, and it's multifaceted really, in that it might be as simple as people providing a bit of food for the people in the house, baking a cake, taking somebody out for a coffee and giving them a bit of morale boosting encouragement. Or it might be that somebody in that community is able to help them with making the house look nice in the things they might provide for it, or painting and decorating a house, because they're the skills that they have, or plumbing, or window cleaning, anything, all those things that we all take for granted that we do in our lives to make our lives run smoothly. People who are beginning to get their lives back together don't have those things in place. They don't have those support networks.
Yeah. So in terms of these volunteers that you're then looking for in this community, are they just expected to go in there and start supporting the person, or are they going to get a training?
No, the way it works is because obviously the huge thing, this is very important. We probably all know the word safeguarding because of the whole issue of protecting people and making sure they're safe. So One Roof completely takes responsibility for setting up that care so it is safe. So all those volunteers are trained by One Roof and they will be supervised by One Roof so that if there are any issues, they know where to go. They give them proper guidance how to behave or what's expected of them. And it's all set within very carefully prepared parameters, is that the right word? So that everything is absolutely in place for them. And while we're on this subject, One Roof has a training day, well, not a training day, but an event where people who are listening to this are thinking, do you know what, I'd really like to hear more about that. And we're running this at St James the Greater, not actually in the church, but in the premises behind, in their community rooms, at 7:30 on the 29th of September. Let me say that again. St James the Greater, in the rooms behind, 7:30 on the 29th of September. And there we'll be explaining in more detail about the project and talking about, if once you've heard about it a little bit more, you think, no, I really want to get involved with this, about how you can take it forwards.
You still haven't explained why you were in the papers, Salma and Helen. I mean, are you going to reveal this at the end, or how long are you going to make us wait?
Yes, earlier in the week, yes, Helen and I were in the paper.
We were.
Because we did get a really good bit of news, didn't we, Helen?
We did.
Did someone make you an offer?
Yes, they did, Seema.
An offer that you couldn't refuse.
Obviously, yes. Go on, Helen. So why were we in the paper, Helen? What happened?
Well, it's very, very exciting. You asked me about my journey in getting involved with homelessness. Leicester Diocese have massively supported me in the work that I'm doing, and in particular, Bishop Tim Stevens has been an immense support behind the whole project. I went to go and talk to him about a year ago, began to share the vision that I believe God had given me. He's been behind it every step of the way. And in no uncertain terms, I told him that I would like the Leicester Diocese to give us a house. And he's quite used to me talking to him in this way. So we got some discussions going in the diocese about how that might be possible. And the two models that we have at One Roof with this housing project, one is, what if somebody says to us, we'll give you a house and the bricks and mortar itself is an investment, we don't want any money for it, you can use it for people who are homeless, but we don't want any return. And then there's another model where people let us use a house they bought, but that has a 2% return, so they get not only the bricks and mortar, they get some money back. Well, Leicester Diocese ended up saying, we found out a couple of weeks ago, we'll let you use a house of ours and we want no return for it. And so the picture in the paper is of Salma and myself and Bishop Tim outside the cathedral being handed a set of keys to a house that they're going to let us use, which hopefully we will have access to in January.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Really fantastic news. But we've got something else in the pipeline as well, haven't we?
We have.
Helen.
As if that's not exciting enough. There's another organisation, and I can't tell you who they are because they haven't signed on the dotted line yet, whereas Leicester Diocese have. They've officially agreed that. Another an organisation came up and said, we think this is very exciting as well. We'd like to provide a house. And we too don't want any return.
Wow.
After Sam and I had got very excited and screamed a little bit, we've been exploring that, and we've are now just taking a think about what the next step is in terms of where that house might be. We're already talking with faith communities in Leicester about all the opportunities, and it's just very exciting.
What if there's people listening who'd like to get involved, who've got a property?
Well,
what should they do?
Talk to us.
Yeah.
Either ring Salma, drop us an email, just talk to us, because we think that there are quite a few people out there. My phrase is, there are no pockets in shrouds. and that might sound like I'm being a bit morbid, but the fact is that the best investment, if you have any spare cash, is property. We know that. We know that property holds its value and increases in value. And not that should be always at the heart of what anybody's doing with their money. But the point is, if you think you have got some surplus cash or a surplus property, then why not come and talk to us? You're not committing yourself in any way, shape or form. It will just be a conversation. Please talk to us. It's my...
Yeah. So if you're out there, you're listening today and you're thinking, actually, yeah, I do have a property, or I do have the opportunity to invest in a property, then give us a call on 07450 925 084. We'd really like to hear from you. So send us a text and, we'll read out your text and then we'll get back in touch with you after the show. But it's like somebody pointed out to me yesterday. I was talking to somebody about the project yesterday, and he was saying that actually this is an opportunity for you to earn as Muslims. Alhamdulillah, this is the month of Ramadan. If you pledge something today, it's a means for you to earn immense reward. And as Helen said, nobody's asking you to sign that investment away. There will be a lease. That investment is always yours. And alhamdulillah, I think to myself how lucky and fortunate we are. Alhamdulillah, we are blessed in so many ways. And if you look at our community, the wealth amongst our community is huge. We have, we look around and you see how much we have, and you think, inshallah, from my perspective, what I would really like to see is for a Muslim, either organisation, charity or individual, to come along and give us a house. We've seen one come from the diocese, we've seen one from another organisation. But I think, we're part of this community and we need to be stepping up and saying, actually, there are people out there who are in need. And what can we do to help? And this is such an easy way.
And so if you don't have the means, maybe you know someone who does.
Yeah.
So perhaps you can pass on the word. So if not you, get the word out. It would be fantastic if we...
So if anybody's got, alhamdulillah, if anybody out there has got some spare cash and wants to invest in a property and let one refuse it, or even if you want to volunteer or do some befriending and your community is ready for befriending, let us know. Inshallah, a really good way to earn some reward.
Salma, somebody's asking, why can't homeless people get a council house and benefits?
Helen, last winter we had the emergency accommodation where we were then looking for properties for people that we were dealing with in winter. And what was sort of the experience then?
The basic problem right at the bottom line is lack of housing stock. Many of you will know that the council housing stock was sold off in the 70s and 80s. It was never replaced. So the massive problem is lack of bricks and mortar. So in terms of going along to the council and saying, please, can you find me a home? There aren't the properties. There physically aren't the properties. That then means that you're left with the option of trying to find private landlords, private rented accommodation. The problem there is that in order for you to find that accommodation, you need £1,000. And £1,000 is for the deposit, for the month's rent that you put down first. And if you're on the streets, homeless, that's usually because you've got no money in your pocket. If you can't even afford a B&B for the night, you're not going to have £1,000 in your pocket. So there is no way that you'll be able to access those private rentals. And the other reason behind the whole benefits situation is that one of the reasons why people end up being homeless is because our benefits system means that at any given point your benefits might be capped, might be stopped, halted, because of all sorts of reasons. You've broken the agreement, or that suddenly there's been the system has deemed that you shouldn't be receiving it anymore because they think you're fit for work, or they don't believe what you're saying about your mental health, or any of those issues, and they don't ask questions first, they just stop your benefit. And if you don't receive benefit, then of course you can't pay your rent. And so then you get this cycle where people basically are given notice, served notice to leave that accommodation. And unless they've got £1,000 in their pocket to find somewhere else, they will become homeless.
And the other thing is, Leicester City Council at the moment, the housing register has got 10,000 people on that register. So if you join, you can imagine you're not going to be top of the list. And unfortunately, just being homeless is not a good enough reason to get in on the housing ladder, to access social housing. But for the winter project, when we did the winter project, and I want to talk a bit more about the winter project in a minute, we actually did go and see some properties, didn't we, Helen?
We did, yeah.
And just explain to us the sort of premises, the houses the flats that we saw. What were they like?
Well, it's really tragic, actually. Christmas Eve this year, I was out till 8 o'clock at night trying to find a couple. The partner in that relationship was heavily pregnant. We could not find them anywhere. Eventually, we did find them somewhere, and One Roof was willing to provide and help support them in gaining this property. I just wanted to weep when I walked in it because the conditions were absolutely appalling. To believe that in Britain in 2015 we are letting people live in such bad accommodation is just shocking. And what we found was the process that happened was that we would approach a private landlord. They'd say, yes, we have somewhere for you to view. You go and view this lovely property and you think, oh, that's very nice. That's worth the money that they're asking. And he'd say, or the landlord would say, lovely, we agree on that. And then when you take the people to sign the dotted line, it's not that property that they're going to get. Now, when it's Christmas Eve and this person will either be on the streets or in this property, what decision do you make? And we had to make the very difficult decision of agreeing for this person to live there when really it was appalling, Salma, wasn't it? It was substandard accommodation.
We went to see quite a few properties last winter to put people into, and it was shocking. They were just like one after the other.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one where it was actually a disused office space that we were shown. All it had was one little tiny toilet cubicle. There was no bathroom, shower, nothing like that. Some of the rooms didn't have any natural light coming in. They still had, if you think about an office and there's sort of desks in the middle of the room, so you've got the sockets coming out of the middle of the room. So they had sockets coming out of the middle of the room that hadn't been disconnected. And that was sort of some of the challenges we were facing. We haven't got long. I'm really sorry. It's coming to the end of our time. But I think it's really important just to talk quickly about the winter accommodation, because that's going to be relaunched again in a few months' time. So when we talk about winter accommodation, what's that, Helen?
Well, we had a very successful project last year working with the council, working very closely with the Dawn Centre, and we had a very proud moment where we actually believed that over the Christmas period there were no people that we could find, and there's an outreach team that do search our streets for people who are homeless, and we actually got the figures, we believe, down to 0. You can never be sure of that because people are very good at hiding. As John said, very often people will go out of the city centre to find a safe refuge to sleep. But the idea is that we set up a winter night shelter. Last year it was at the Dawn Centre. This is a place where people can, like John, turn up to and know that they're going to get a safe bed for the night in a dormitory or in a shared space. And over that winter period, we normally have a case panel who work together to discuss the people who are on that winter night shelter, to discuss a way forward for them, like we did with John, where it was found that a good route for him would be Wordsworth Road, so that we can just discuss what the options are to help people become more independent of their living and what the right pathway might be for them to lead to independent living.
Yeah, so in terms of the winter accommodation, obviously One Roof provides accommodation, and for that we need funding.
Yes, we do.
We do.
Yeah.
So what's your plea to our listeners today?
Please, give us money. This sounds terrible, but I'm actually very good at asking for money, so I'll go with it. During this winter period, very often when we're trying to find alternatives, which might mean putting somebody up in a B&B for the night or supporting the Dawn Centre, we need cash because bricks and mortar, a place for the night, is going to cost money. So please be generous at this time, because the winter months might seem a long way away at the moment with the lovely weather we're having, but they'll soon be upon us, and then it starts to be dangerous sleeping on the streets.
You sound like a woman who gets your way. I mean, if you manage to get the house from the bishop, I think you'll probably succeed in getting some money.
Very persuasive.
Do you want to just tell people the website address, Helen? And you're going to look at me blankly then. If you are interested in anything Helen's talked about today, whether it's One Roof Homes, if you've got a property you'd like to lease to One Roof, or if you'd like to invest in a property, if you're out there and thinking, you know what, I'd really like to volunteer or help in some way, or if you want to donate towards the winter emergency accommodation, all this information is on the website. The website is www.oneroof.org.uk. That's www.oneroof.org.uk, and you've got all our contact details are on there. I'm so sorry that we've run out of time and we can't talk to Helen any longer. We've just got one text message which I'm going to read out quickly. Where will this shelter be located? If you're talking about the One Roof Homes, the home is bought in whichever area of Leicester a faith or community group is ready to volunteer and befriend the clients. So if you've basically got some money and you want to invest in a property, we would have the discussion and we would make sure that it's in a part of Leicester where we know that your property price will appreciate, not depreciate. We are coming to the end of our time. Thank you so much, Helen, for coming on the show and telling us about One Roof Leicester. Thank you, John, for sharing your story with us. It was lovely to have you here.
Thank you.
Before we go, we've got Seema, who's going to do thought
do you know
for
what,
the day.
Salma? I'm just wondering, instead of me finishing with reflections, which is probably just a couple of minutes, I think it'll be nice to actually finish with listening to John, perhaps. Is that okay?
Yeah,
do you mind?
We can.
So, John, how about you having the last words? I was just wondering, if you think about over the years that you've been homeless and the help that you've received now, the position that you are in now, now you have got somewhere to live, how would you describe your position now compared to over the years? How do you feel you are? What place are you in now, as in mentally and emotionally and in every way? How do you feel now?
Oh yeah, I think I'm in a great place now, really, compared to what I was years ago. So I'm my mental state is coming back to normal, you know, my mental, my health, like, you know, so I'm in a much better place than what a lot of people out there are not at the moment, you know, so I've got this to say though, I do pity people that are still out on the street. I mean, I feel for them because I know what they're going through, because I've been through it myself, so I'm just hoping that people can look on homelessness more seriously, really. So.
And John, how does the future look like now for you?
The future's looking great for me, really. You know, I'm part of the Sound Cafe. I like to go down there and get involved with things, you know, either craft or poetry or, you know, whatever's going on there. And I'm starting to do things at college, you know, study this and that, you know. So things are going great for me at the moment. So.
That sounds great, doesn't it? So I mean, if that's not a reason why people should help if they can, and you've heard it from John. John really knows what it's like to be in that situation, to be homeless, and he's saying himself, if he could help, he'd love to. And if you're in a position to help, please do, and we can see the difference that it makes. Got a nice smiley face, John. Yeah. Okay. We
will end with that. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week with the Who Cares show. This is Radio Ramadan 95.1 FM.